Hello and welcome to Divine Revelation. Today we're going to talk about something that we all face at some point in life: challenges and difficult times. It's natural to feel overwhelmed with worries, stress, and the pressures of everyday life, whether it's due to illness, financial difficulties, relationship problems, or anything else that brings anxiety and fear. But I want to invite you to reflect on something that can transform the way you face these issues: trusting in God. The Bible repeatedly teaches us that instead of worrying, we should trust in God's plan for our life. In Philippians 4:6-7 it says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." In this video, we'll explore how to apply this teaching to our daily lives. What does it mean, practically, to trust in God? How can we strengthen our faith and allow that trust to transform our lives? We'll approach this topic in several parts, each designed to deepen our understanding and help us live with more peace and purpose. If you've ever felt like the weight of the world is on your shoulders or are going through a tough time, this video is for you. By the end, I hope you'll feel inspired and strengthened to see your problems and concerns in a new light. Trusting in God goes beyond a simple notion or a comforting phrase. It's a daily and profound commitment to surrender control of our lives to the Creator of all things. Often, this trust is tested when we face challenges or difficult circumstances, but it is exactly in these moments that it becomes most relevant. Just as a boat navigating through turbulent waters, trusting in God is believing that He is at the helm, guiding us to calmer waters. Even if we can't see the final destination, we know He has the complete map in His hands, and with His perfect knowledge, will guide us safely. This relationship of trust is not built overnight, but over a lifetime of experiences, where we witness God's care and faithfulness, even amidst the storms. Furthermore, trusting in God also means accepting that we won't always understand His ways. Often, what seems to be a loss or a delay may be preparation for something greater. Prophet Isaiah reminds us that God's thoughts are higher than ours. Isaiah 55:8-9. And trusting in His wisdom is what keeps us steady in times of uncertainty. This trust is not passive but active. It requires a constant decision to surrender our fear and anxiety to God, believing that He is good and has the best plan for our lives. Thus, living a life of trust in God is living with the conviction that, regardless of the circumstances, He is working for our good. Another important aspect of this trust is that it is not based on our immediate circumstances, but on God's unchanging character. The Bible reveals that God is faithful, just, loving, and always present. Therefore, our trust is not shaken when we face difficulties, because we know whom we have believed. We can rest in the assurance that He will never forsake us, and that His promises are eternal. This trust gives us the courage to face the unknown, knowing that whatever the future holds, God is already there, preparing the way for us. Finally, trusting in God frees us from the burden of trying to control everything around us. In a world where so many things are beyond our reach, trusting in God offers us peace. This peace comes from the understanding that He already knows the end from the beginning, and that in His hands, we are secure. This trust also invites us to live with more ease, knowing that even when everything seems uncertain, the God who sustains the universe also sustains our lives. Developing trust in God doesn't happen instantly. It is a continuous process that builds over time. The first step on this journey is prayer. Prayer is our direct way of communicating with God, of laying out our fears, doubts, and desires before Him. When we bring our worries to God in prayer, we experience the peace that surpasses all understanding, as Paul mentions in Philippians 4:6-7. This peace is the result of trusting that God not only hears our prayers, but also acts according to His perfect plan for our lives. Constant practice of prayer strengthens our relationship with God and teaches us to trust Him more. Another fundamental element for developing trust in God is meditating on the Scriptures. God's Word is full of promises of care, provision, and protection. As we read and reflect on these promises, our faith is strengthened and our trust grows. The Bible is full of stories of men and women who, in the midst of adversity, trusted in God and saw His power at work. Joseph, for example, was betrayed by his brothers and spent years in prison, but he continued to trust in God, and at the right time, was raised to the position of governor of Egypt. These stories inspire us to maintain our faith even when circumstances seem unfavorable. Additionally, trust in God develops as we experience His faithfulness in our lives. Each time we see a prayer answered or go through a difficult situation and realize that God was with us, our trust in Him is strengthened. It's important, then, to be attentive to the small and large moments when God acts on our behalf, so we can recognize and thank Him for His goodness. As we accumulate these faith experiences, our trust in God becomes increasingly solid, like a rock that withstands the storms. Another important aspect of developing trust in God is cultivating a heart of obedience. Often our trust in God is tested when He calls us to do something that seems difficult or impossible. However, by obeying His voice, even without fully understanding the reason or outcome, we demonstrate our trust that He knows what is best for us. Obedience leads us to experience God's provision and care in ways we never imagined, and this strengthens our faith. Living with gratitude is a practice that transforms the heart and strengthens our trust in God. Gratitude helps us focus on what we already have and the blessings that God gives us daily, rather than on what is still lacking. When we approach God with a grateful heart, we recognize that everything we have is a gift from Him, and that even in difficulties, we can find reasons to be thankful. This attitude of gratitude constantly reminds us of God's goodness and His ongoing care for us. One of the benefits of living with gratitude is that it helps us cultivate a positive perspective, even in the midst of challenges. The Bible encourages us to give thanks in all circumstances. 1 Thessalonians 5:18, and this includes difficult times. When we thank God for what He has already done, our trust that He will continue to take care of us grows. Gratitude helps us see beyond immediate problems and reminds us that God has brought us this far and will continue to sustain us. Additionally, the practice of gratitude brings us closer to God. When we approach Him with a heart full of thanks, our fellowship with Him deepens. Gratitude opens the space for us to perceive God's presence in all areas of our lives, from the small daily blessings to the great miracles. This constant recognition of God's goodness strengthens our faith and encourages us to trust Him more, knowing that He is faithful in all His promises. Gratitude also has the power to change the way we face our struggles. When we choose to thank God, even when circumstances are unfavorable, we are demonstrating our trust that He is in control. This attitude teaches us to depend on God, knowing that He can turn difficult situations into opportunities for growth and blessing. Instead of focusing on problems, we begin to see God's hands working on our behalf, bringing unexpected solutions and provision at the right times. Gratitude makes us more aware of God's love for us and helps us rest in the assurance that He is always taking care of every detail of our life. Furthermore, living with gratitude helps us avoid the trap of dissatisfaction. When we focus on what we don't have or on circumstances that didn't turn out as expected, we risk developing a spirit of murmuring and complaint. However, by cultivating an attitude of gratitude, we are able to see life from a new perspective. It allows us to celebrate victories, no matter how small, and to recognize that even in times of scarcity or difficulty, God remains good and faithful. Gratitude protects us from bitterness and gives us strength to keep trusting in God, even when the journey becomes challenging. Finally, living with gratitude reminds us of God's sovereignty. When we thank Him for His past provisions, we acknowledge that He has been faithful throughout our history. This gives us confidence to face the future, knowing that the same God who was faithful yesterday will be faithful tomorrow. Gratitude keeps us connected to God's goodness and love, making our faith stronger and enabling us to trust in His plan, even when we don't fully understand it. Anxiety is a common experience for all of us, especially in a world full of uncertainties. However, as Christians, we are called to face anxiety with faith, trusting that God is in control of all things. When we feel overwhelmed by worries, it is important to remember Jesus' words in Matthew 6:34, where He encourages us not to worry about tomorrow, as each day has enough trouble of its own. This passage invites us to live one day at a time, casting our anxieties on God and trusting that He will provide what we need. One of the first steps in facing anxiety with faith is to acknowledge that, no matter how much we try, we cannot control all the circumstances of our lives. Anxiety often arises when we feel we've lost control or when we don't know what the future holds. However, faith reminds us that God is in control, and He knows exactly what is best for us. By surrendering our need for control to God, we find peace in the assurance that He is guiding our steps and taking care of our needs. Another way to face anxiety with faith is through prayer. As mentioned earlier, Philippians 4:6-7 encourages us to present our requests to God with thanksgiving. When we bring our anxieties to God in prayer, we are demonstrating our trust in His ability to handle our problems and concerns. Prayer not only relieves our worries, but also brings us closer to God, reinforcing our faith that He is with us in every situation. Meditating on God's promises is also a powerful tool for dealing with anxiety. The Bible is filled with promises of God's care, provision, and protection. When we focus on these promises, we shift our attention from our fears to God's faithfulness. For example, Psalm 55:22 says, "Cast your cares on the Lord, and He will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken." By meditating on such promises, we remind ourselves of God's commitment to support us, no matter what we face. Another important aspect of facing anxiety with faith is to build a support network of other believers. Sharing our concerns with friends or family who share our faith can bring encouragement and prayer support. We were not meant to walk this journey alone, and having a community that supports and prays for us can help us feel less isolated and more grounded in our faith. The Bible encourages us to bear one another's burdens, Galatians 6:2, and to seek encouragement from fellow believers. Additionally, focusing on the present moment rather than dwelling on the past or worrying about the future can help manage anxiety. Jesus' words in Matthew 6:34 remind us that worrying about tomorrow is unproductive and adds unnecessary stress to our lives. Instead, we are invited to trust God with today's challenges, knowing He will take care of us. Lastly, practicing gratitude can be an effective way to combat anxiety. By intentionally recognizing and appreciating the blessings in our lives, we can shift our focus from what we lack to what we have. Gratitude helps us to see God's hand in our lives and to trust that He is working for our good, even when things seem uncertain. If you're facing challenges and difficult times, remember that you don't have to go through them alone. Trusting in God is a journey that involves daily decisions and practice, but it's one that brings immense peace and assurance. I hope this video has been helpful and that it encourages you to deepen your trust in God, finding comfort and strength in His presence. Thank you for joining me today on Divine Revelation. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video. If you have any questions or would like to share your experiences with us, please leave a comment below. May God bless you and keep you in His peace.